Hey everyone, welcome. Saturday afternoon, a little later than normal. Couple announcements here. I'm going to continue on with the Beato bundle, Ultimate Bundle that has my music theory course, ear training course, the Quick Lessons Pro, which is more of an advanced guitar course, or I'd say it's intermediate, and my Intro Beginner Guitar course. These are all video courses, all these things. They're ear training course has these modules that teach people, that will teach you how to learn how to hear things, how to learn songs quickly, how to improvise better, how to recognize intervals, scales, chords, all these kind of things. And of course, my Beato Book Interactive is just music theory from the very beginning. The other thing is that I have a couple more shows coming up. I have a show here in Atlanta for those of you down in the South on the 28th of September. I'm playing at the Variety Playhouse. That's going to be a fun show. I have some special guests, and looks like there's going to be a billionaire reunion. I keep talking about it. We're having our first rehearsal in about 2 weeks, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then New York City, October 17th at the Gramercy Theater, which is a killer place. I did my first show there back, I don't know, when was that, Mike? I think Mike's on here. I think it was in March of 2022. I'm pretty sure it was. I have a thing. It's sold out, that show. I have a thing that they gave me, Live Nation gave me. And the show in Berlin is sold out. So it's actually oversold right now. So I got this email last night from a guy, and I actually forwarded it to Mike and Aaron, who are both in the chat here. And the title of the interview was "Too Many Interviews!" And this guy says he got hooked on my channel when it was about music theory and things like what makes this song great. And I can appreciate you would eventually run out of songs that are great. There really aren't that many. That's pretty funny, right? And then he says, but whenever I see an interview with some musician or producer or whatever, most of whom I've never heard of, I move on. So I haven't watched your channel in a while. Theory videos I found very useful. I bought your book. There's a lot more I could learn there. Then you extended your book in an ear training course, and how much you enjoy that. But as far as the interviews, this guy's like, he doesn't know any of the people that I'm interviewing. Now, I mean, okay, I just interviewed Kirk Hammett. If you never heard of Metallica, okay. I've interviewed Pat Metheny, Keith Jarrett, Sting, Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, and Kim from Soundgarden, Matt Cameron, Brian May. I did a breakdown of Bohemian Rhapsody. I interviewed Seal. I did Kiss from a Rose with him. I've interviewed tons of well-known people. These unknown people: Daniel Lanois, producer; Butch Vig, producer; Billy Corgan, Maynard from Tool. All these unknown people that I've interviewed. And I'm not saying this to belittle the guy. I forwarded this interview or this email to Aaron and Mike because it actually struck a chord with me. And if I look at my last few videos, which I'll look at here, and I did a video. I did the interview with Kirk Hammett. Then right before that, Lee Sklar, who was in town, one of my really good friends. And then Bjorn from ABBA. Then I did one on a Neil Schon guitar solo, which is really more in the lines of the kind of videos I used to do. That involved music theory. I talked about one of Neil's guitar solos and the theory. I broke it down on the piano, like much like an old school Rick video. Then I had the Jimmy Webb, speaking of songwriters, who wrote Wichita Lineman, and By the Time I Get to Phoenix, and all these incredible songs. Legend. That was an interview. Then I talked about video on the studio, opening my studio again. Well, I mean, doing recording things in here. I just got my remote control microphone here, microphone stand, which is very cool. Then I had John Petrucci, Tosin Abasi, and Devin Townsend in here, an interview with them. Then you get back to top 20 rhythm guitar parts of all time. That's kind of like an old school thing. And then I had a video. Then I had Christopher Cross, and then I did a video on this Carlos Rios guitar solo, which is really more along the lines of the music videos I did in the past. If you go back to the beginning of my channel, you will find videos on music theory, on ear training. You'll find videos on drum tuning. You'll find videos on mixing, on how to use compression. Videos that have millions of views. How to use EQ, right? Those aren't really music theory videos, but they're, you know, the channel was devoted and is devoted to teaching. It was initially devoted to teaching music to people that didn't have the benefits of the things that I have, right? Didn't have the benefit of having a wonderful public school education like I did in a great town, Fairport, New York. And then also having an undergraduate degree in music education, right, classical bass, and then a master's degree in jazz guitar. So all these things that I learned in my life, at the beginning of my channel, I wanted to just give them away on here for free through YouTube, not to go anywhere else, not to have sponsors, not to do anything like that. Please don't give me super chats here so that well, okay, people, okay, Christopher, your bundle is amazing, finally helping me make a better songwriter. Okay, thank you. How about Brian Setzer? Okay, so let's not talk about interviews here. If you have something to I don't know, just no super chats, no super chats. I decided that the way that I would fund my channel is through selling educational courses, the 4 that I mentioned at the beginning. And then I would, then eventually the interview thing started happening. You know, I did the What Makes This Song Great breakdowns, but the interview thing kind of started. I had a very dear friend of mine, David Bendith, that wrote to me and said, he wrote to me, and then we did a FaceTime. And I had casually knew David, but David's a wonderful producer and a dear friend, and or he's become a dear friend of mine. And he said that I needed to do these interviews with people that, all these people that I'm doing the interviews with, because he said that you have the reach with your channel and you have the knowledge of all these different genres. He said, who can interview, well, later on, he said, who can interview Pat Metheny and Keith Jarrett? And I haven't talked to him this week, but Kirk Hammett and Maynard from Tool and, you know, Brian May and Sting and, you know, all the John Schofield, Bernard Purdy, Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Chuck Rainey, Lee Sklar, all these people that I've interviewed, right? Peter Frampton. I can talk about their music with them, and because I've lived the entire lifespan of rock and roll, at least from the beginning of the Beatles on, not the beginning of rock and roll, right, in the 50s, but I was born in 1962, and I have incredibly diverse knowledge base on multiple genres of music, from metal to jazz, all different types of jazz. I taught jazz history, right? To music theory, to ear training, and then I learned about music production, so I understand songs and how they're put together. From the guitar sounds to the bass sounds to the drum sounds. When I have Greg Bissonette was in here. He's one of my really dear friends, and Greg said he was making a video on John Bonham, and so he went to look on YouTube, and then my video came up, and he said how I was talking about using 3-ply drums. The old Ludwig drums were maple, poplar, maple, with maple reinforcement hoops. And I got into that about how the drum construction back then was different than it is today, and how today they use drum hoops that are 2.3 millimeters versus 1.6. And the 1.6 ones on the vintage drums are lighter, and they put less tension on essentially on the bearing edges. And then of course the maple reinforcement hoops are rounded. They're not cut with a sharper bearing edges like they are today, so it gives the drums a different sound. Now, how would you know all this stuff and know these Keith Jarrett records and Pat Metheny records and make videos on Slipknot and Deftones, do a breakdown of Minerva and do a breakdown of Smells Like Teen Spirit and Spoon Man and and Alice in Chains, and also know about drum construction, right? And also be able to talk about, I did a video on Bach when I went to Leipzig. I made videos on the incredible pianist Martha Argerich and also Yuzha Wang, because I'm as interested in classical music and classical performers on all different instruments and all different eras of classical music as I am with the eras of jazz. When I interviewed Pat Metheny, I talked about Charlie Haydn. I talked about Jack DeJohnette. I talked about Billy Higgins. I said I saw you with Charlie Haydn, Billy Higgins at the Village Vanguard. I saw the Pat Metheny group 75 times. I saw you play with Bob Moses. I saw you play with Miroslav Vitus and Roy Haynes at Riles in 1986. When I was talking with Kirk Hammett, I talked about the last time I saw him was in 2017 when I went to see them and Avenged Sevenfold play, and I'm friends with Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold, who's been on my channel multiple times. But still, that email got to me. After all that, it still got to me because, in a certain sense, having the channel weighed so much towards these, because I have to tell you, I have so many interviews that I haven't put out. I have 10 in the can right now. And I don't want to be disrespectful to these people that are legends and wait 6 months to release their interviews. Because, most of the interviews I've done are from people contacting me or people that are in town here, So if those of you that haven't joined, that are joining currently, I'm talking about an email I got that where a guy reached out to me because he says I'm doing too many interviews. So what do I do? I'm going to pivot here because this is a related topic. So my son Dylan just started playing the guitar 2 weeks ago. And you guys have seen Dylan on here early on in the channel. He's not been on in years. So Dylan has a left-handed guitar. He has a left-handed SG, and he just turned 16, and we just got him a left-handed acoustic guitar. And I thought, how do I teach Dylan how to play the guitar? And And I thought about it. Well, Dylan has this incredible ear, but as I always say, instruments don't play themselves, right? I mean, you can know, let me see if I can see myself here. I don't even have this on here. You can know that this is an A minor chord when you hear it, but that doesn't mean you know where to play it on the guitar. It doesn't matter about you. You still have to learn where the notes are, right? And so I thought, okay, how do you teach somebody guitar from the beginning? I've made videos on this. If I had to relearn guitar again, like, do you teach them with a Jazz 3 pick, or do you teach them with a Dunlop Tortex Ultra, whatever this pick is, 1.4 millimeter, like right down to that? What size? Or do you use a Fender medium? What do you do? What what is the angle of pick? Do you want to have to relearn things? If you want to play super fast, and most of the people that have come in here, like John Petrucci and Tosin, they all use Jazz 3 picks. Kirk Hammett uses Jazz 3. They have less drag on the strings because they have a pointed tip, right? So it's like, I'm rethinking all these things, and this kind of goes back to the beginning of my channel. I was like, what are all the things? Where do I start my channel? What did I start learning, or what did I start teaching on here? Well, I started with ear training videos and basic music theory videos. And that's been the bedrock of the channel, even though I started doing interviews 6 months into the channel, maybe not even. If you look up Rick Beato Sounding Off, or just look up Sounding Off on my channel, you'll see Steve Vai, you'll see Victor Wooten, you'll see Dweezil Zappa, you'll see Dennis Chambers, you'll see, oh my gosh, I had, there's so many of these videos that interviews that I did, and they're all done via Skype, and they're really poor quality. And now that I'm, basically through you guys supporting the channel, through either buying my courses that help you become better musicians. I have my Beato bundle on sale for $99. That's all 4 of my courses. I just sell them for $99 because people I know don't have a lot of money. And that's, instead of selling each of them for $140 or $150, like a lot of people sell courses for, I do it for that much. I don't have any sponsors on here, like I said earlier in the video, because I don't want to be talking about something that I'm not interested in just to be able to make these videos. You can also become a member of the Beato Club. I haven't talked about the Beato Club. I don't talk about it that often. If you want to support the channel, I've got 4 different tiers. My top tier has actually been sold out, but I opened up a few spaces so you can look at it. You can go to my website and look at that. But when I do my live shows, like I've done 6 of them. The last one was in Sweden last month. And then I've got this one in Atlanta on the 28th of this coming month. And I hope people come out to it. And here in my, when I say my hometown, it's where I live, where I've lived for 30 years nearly. On September 28th and on October 17th in New York City at the Gramercy Theater. My show in Berlin sold out. I said it at the beginning of the video. But these courses that I have, my Beato book, my ear training course, my Quick Lessons Pro, and my beginner guitar course, those were things designed to go along with the channel where it was at the time, which were mainly music theory, ear training, song breakdowns, what makes a song great, and then occasional list video, top 20 videos that I had. And the interviews were a small part. Well, the fact that my interviews get millions of views and that people reach out to me, these people that I love, whose music I have incredible respect for. And the greatest session players of all time, like Steve Lukather, like Chuck Rainey, Bernard Purdy, Lee Sklar. I mean, all these great players that I've gotten to meet, that I've idolized my whole life, that I've seen on the back of album covers. It's a big thing. It's an important thing. But what do? Do I say, no, I've done too many interviews? Do I let the interviews sit around for 6 months? You know, if I don't, when I make videos about teaching, they sell courses. That's the irony of it, right? And when I do interviews, they don't really sell any courses. If you notice, when I do my interview videos, I don't put my courses in there. I just put my Beato Club supporters in the description because it's disrespectful to the people that I'm interviewing. So this is kind of, it's not an existential thing. It's like, it's a thing that, this thing really kind of stuck me, you know, and it resonated with me. I have to admit it. It did. I mean, let's read some of these super chats here. Rick, amazing number of talented musicians that are willing to sit with you. It's a testament to what you've built and the value you've added. The variety is great. They say innovate or die. This is an evolution. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. PCO 2004, thank you. Jub, yeah, no, here is super chat. Anyways, your interviews are music history and they're needed. Not a lot of people can provide the insight like you can. Thank you, Jub. Appreciate that. Let me see here. OOS. You got serenaded by Christopher Cross. Too many interviews? ? That's great. Low Earth Orbit Pilot. Time is much too short. Interview those whom you can before they disappear from this earth. Thank you for all of this. Thank you, Low Orbit Pilot. I appreciate that. Seth Cashman. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. Alex, your interviews are great, but I would, it seems like you've shifted over time from very advanced theory for musicians to videos for more aimed at the casual listeners or boomer nostalgia. Well, if you consider people that are, the greatest musicians that ever lived, Steve Gadd, Pat Metheny, Keith Jarrett, boomer nostalgia. No, these are the greatest musicians that have ever played instruments. Sting, boomer nostalgia for Sting, for Brian May. Take your $4.99 back. Boomer and nostalgia. Advanced music theory. You guys realize that these videos still exist on my channel. There's 1,200 of them. There's 1,200 videos on my channel that are all available with a click of a mouse or a touch of your finger. Huey, do what you love. Hold on here. Jeez. I don't know why it's doing that here. Do what you love, what draws your attention. The focus will change over time, but it will be honest. Let me go back here. Boomer nostalgia. That's offensive. I don't get offended by stuff like that. I am a boomer. I was born in 1962. Brett! There you go. Banhammer. Nah. I'm sorry if you consider the greatest musicians and improvisers and songwriters of all time to be boomer nostalgia. But I also have Tim Henson on and Tosin Abasi and all the greatest young musicians out there I've had on my channel. So Mike Dawes, all the greatest young players, really. It's of course an honor to have them on as well. But these videos still are there. Let's see here. Brother. Yes, maybe another channel for just interviews, almost like Coffee with Ola. No, I don't want. I already have another channel, Rick Beato 2. You can subscribe to that. If you don't know about Rick Beato 2, that's my second channel that I've had for 7 years. Since I started Rick Beato 2 right at the beginning of right at the beginning of my channel. Okay, somebody said, okay, there's another one here. Here's another one of these. Brian, why is Bill Frisell never mentioned? Love you, Rick. Because Bill Frisell was mentioned a lot in my interview with Julian Lange, with my interview with John Schofield. Bill Frisell has been mentioned in my interview with Pat Metheny. Bill Frisell has been mentioned many times, Brian. You should really, well, you just haven't watched those videos. Todd Freeman says, hey, Todd, who else could talk about Carnival and how to use Mixolydian scale on solo? Keep being you, Rick. Thank you, Todd. Carnival, oh my God, that's one of my favorite What Makes This Song Great. When I broke down Goliath, which is in 27/4, the drum part. And the bass sound that the bass player John had, the Dark Glass Alpha Omega bass pedal, was based on that. Somebody asked, what do I think of the Deftones? That's another one. Well, watch my breakdown, What Makes It Sound Great on the Deftones. I've talked about the Deftones many times on my channel. Music life, let's see, music life here. Rick, keep doing what you do and you hit the mark far and wide. You're connecting with various audiences. You can't please everyone. The content is awesome. Much respect. Thank you. Music life. Matt Orlando says, oh my God, I cannot. Metheny is incredible. Can't find another time he opened up like that. It's gold. Same with the Keith interviews. Sometimes wisdom is more valuable than theory. Wow. Well, you know, the thing is that all of my interviews have the artist playing. Billy Corgan played in the interview. Sting played in the interview. Kirk Hammett played in the interview. Keith Jarrett played in the interview. Metheny played in the interview. John Schofield played in the interview. Bernard Purdy played in his interview. You know? Wisdom over theory. Although theory is pretty important, though. All right? So I was thinking about this. It's like, why... What is the difference between me in 1994, pre-internet, pre-my band, pre-producing any projects, and now? The only difference is that I became a music producer and I learned about recording. But everything I knew that I brought to my channel is... I knew back in 1994. And my Beato book, which is now my Beato Book Interactive, I never would have imagined that I would have my book that I wrote to teach my students music theory, so I didn't have to keep writing things out, because there was no tab books. There were no books to teach things like suspended chords, and, you know, they just didn't have these kind of things for guitar. They didn't even have tab books out in 1989, 1988. I never could have imagined that I would have a video course, and not only was the book, which I've expanded, you know, twice as much as it was, but I have all these video lectures. Man, if I would have only had that back in 1989 to show my students, but of course they didn't have iPhones and things like that, and tablets and or whatever, iPads to play the stuff on, right? You had to teach everything in person. And it's amazing, but this is, you know, but all the knowledge that I have really came from just being inquisitive about music, right? And, you know, when I first started taking or learning the guitar, I looked at this chord here, the C chord, right? And I was like, okay, what are these notes? And I had this Mel Bay book. That's where I learned my first chords from. And it told you the notes of the chord. And it was like C, E, G, C, E. It's like, that's C major? And I could recognize a major from minor chord. I didn't know anything about theory, but I was like, there's only 3 notes, C, E, G. And then there's a repeated C and a repeated E. And then if you go to this A minor chord. I was like, that's the first chord in Angie. And first chord in a lot of songs. It's like, and I look at the things. I had the letter names over each thing. It's like A, E, A, C, E. Well, there's only 3 notes in that chord. And it's the curiosity that I had of learning these things, right? It's like, what is the, that curiosity is what enabled me to learn all this stuff and to be interested in all these different genres of music. My friends called me the sponge when I was in college because I just needed to learn everything. A couple more comments here. Christopher Getchell says, your Beato bundle is amazing. It's finally helping me be a better songwriter. You know, and that's the thing, really. It's like the things that I learned about songwriting and that I've incorporated from doing live streams, honestly, and doing the whiteboard videos. How many of you have seen my whiteboard videos? By the way, I'm going to install a new whiteboard to do. I took the whiteboard down. I started making whiteboard videos to teach things because I think it's really good to see things written out. And when you take the key of C, for example, you go through the 7 chords in the key of C, then I started saying, okay, well, you've got C major, D minor is the 2 chord, E minor is the 3 chord, F major is the 4 chord, G major is the 5 chord, A minor is the 6 chord, B diminished is the 7 chord. And then I went on to teach things like secondary dominance. And all these things are in my Beato Book Interactive. And they're all in my ear training course. It's how to hear them. If you're in the key of A minor, or if you're in the key of C, and you have an A minor chord, okay, that's the 6th chord. But if you have an E major chord before it, this is what you'd call a secondary dominant. The E major chord's a 5 of 6. And it's a 5 of 6, whether you hear it, if you know you're in the key of C, 1, 4, 5, 5 of 6 to 6, right? This is the theory of music and why it's important. And it's important to learn all these things. And these are the things you learn from my Beato bundle. And that songwriting thing, I made a thing called Chords for Songwriters. It's how to take your simple progressions and spice them up by using secondary dominants, third related chords, borrowed chords from different keys, from parallel keys and things like that. And you can do it by just hunting around on your instrument, or you can actually learn something about music and know what options are and check them out and see if they're cool. Instead of hacking around for 3 hours, you can shorten the amount of time you spend by actually learning something about music, which is why I created this channel to begin with. But it's important to learn about music history as well and get insights from these legends. That's just as important too, right? But when I do these videos, when I go up to interview Kirk Hammett, I pay for it. I hire the camera people to film it because I can't film the stuff myself. I pay for my flight to go up there. I pay for my hotel to stay there. And I pay for the interview. Kirk Hammett doesn't pay for the interview. I rent the studio out that we recorded in. And I pay for these videos, those interviews out of pocket from basically selling my courses and people that are, contribute to the Beato Club. That's it. Or contribute to Super Chat here. There's John Eden. Being 1 year older, therefore much wiser. Dude, you're up to 3.6 million. You're doing it right. Get out of your head. Tim Farrell, my old friend who was in the Monroes. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Tom Schultz, I know I keep seeing that on here. Tom Schultz is there's 2 Tom Schultz interview questions. I have to reach out to Tom as many times as I can think. I don't know what to do about that. I would love to interview Tom. If any of you have Tom's phone number, oh my God, people have contacted me. Oh, I know Tom's, dog sitter or whatever. And unless you know somebody that knows Tom and talks to him regularly, that's pretty much the only only answer there. Anyhow, that is the current state of the channel here. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. You know, about 60% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed. It's hard to believe. These last few interviews I'm trying to get with Paul McCartney and people like that, Keith Richards, you know, if I had 5 million subscribers, that means people just don't, a lot of people just don't get YouTube. Pete Townsend, David Gilmour. I mean, there's plenty of people that I can name, list of people that I've not interviewed that I would love to. Phil Collins. I've not interviewed Joni Mitchell. I'm trying to reconnect with Joni to do an interview, but she's busy. She's out playing, doing stuff. But I hope that'll happen. Anyhow, you guys are amazing, and I really appreciate this. This has been insightful. Thank you for listening and tuning in. Hit subscribe. Beato bundle, $99 for all 4 of my courses. Support the channel that way and become a better musician. I got a show on September 28th here in Atlanta. I'd love to see you there. October 17th in New York. And you can become a member of the Beato Club. Thanks for the super chats, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk. See ya.